The F-86D Sabre Dog has been a historic landmark in Chandler, well known to all the people of the city for a very long time, and we're very excited about it going to its new home in Veterans Oasis Park. The Saber Dog was used by the U.S. Air Force, the new U.S. Air Force. Prior to that it was the Army Air Corps. So the new U.S. Air Force needed interceptor fighter jets, and the role of the Saber Dog was to be what they called an interceptor. It would fly after and track down enemy fighter jets and engage them, and it was a defensive airplane. And it was armed with a series of rockets that were stored in a drop-down tray underneath the fuselage, and when it was ready to go, you drop the tray down and fire the rockets off, and they were self-propelled, and they would track down the MiG. There were two features of the F-86D that were really distinctive. One was the radar that was housed within the nose cone that aided with targeting and tracking enemy fighter jets. The other thing that was really distinctive about the F-86D was its speed. It was the fastest jet airplane in use by the U.S. Air Force at the time that it was used, especially during the Korean War. And it set several speed records and topped out at over 715 miles per hour. The F-86D we have on display here in Chandler, which has been here since 1961, was decommissioned that same year after 10 years of service in the U.S. Air Force. It spent most of that service time in Texas, where it was used as a training aircraft. And then right towards the end of its life, it was transferred to Davis-Monthan Airfield in Tucson before it was decommissioned and moved to Chandler. When the plane was put on display in A.J. Chandler Park, the Chandler Junior Chamber of Commerce did a fundraiser in order to pay for the monument. They sold stock certificates worth $1 each, and that's how they raised the money to build the monument for the plane. It was on loan to us from the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force, and it still is today. We have to renew that loan every year. And it was to signify the close relationship between Williams Air Force Base and Chandler. Williams Air Force Base was located where Phoenix Gateway Airport is today. And the USO for the servicemen stationed there was here in downtown Chandler. They came to Chandler for their recreation, for movie theaters and restaurants and that kind of stuff. A lot of the officers' wives and families ended up moving to Chandler and living in Chandler while they were stationed here.
Chandler was really the closest place to live to the base at that point in time. And there were a number of people, once they got out of the service, that chose to make Chandler their home. So there was a big tie in the community and the plane. It had been in the northeast corner of A.J. Chandler Park for a lot of years, and in 1985 the city undertook a plan to renovate Dr. A.J. Chandler Park, and the plan involved moving the jet to a new location on the corner of Delaware and Chandler Boulevard. We had to send the plans for the pedestal that the plane rests on to the Air Force and get approval of those plans. Then we had to hire a contractor to build the pedestal, which is a little more complex than one might think. And then we had to hire a crane and a company with a flatbed to relocate it to the location on Delaware Street. So there was a lot involved.
And there's significance in that location. That was a location where the servicemen who were stationed at Williams Air Force Base would sit and wait for a ride from people from town who were heading east towards the base. They would sit there and wait for a ride. They'd hitch a ride from there. And in the 1970s, when Roel Navarrete was mayor, he actually had a shade structure erected for the servicemen so they didn't have to sit out there in the sun. And that shade structure still sits there today.
As long as Williams Air Force Base was operational, They really took part in maintaining that plane and keeping it looking 100%. They would come out and do whatever they needed to do to the aluminum and polish it, and the plane always looked great. It was, I don't know that I would say renovated, but it was certainly cleaned up when it was moved to the location on Delaware. When the base went away, there were no airmen close that they could have come maintain it, so it kind of went downhill.
Restoring the F-86D is a really important thing for our community. The airplane symbolizes so much history and is such an important part of commemorating the service that veterans have given. To be able to restore it and make it look like new, we're really excited to do this and to really show pride in the history and show pride in the veterans we have in the Chandler community and the service that they've given protecting us in our country. I think seeing that airplane, elicits a lot of memories for veterans who were veterans in Korea and Vietnam at the time those jets were used, but also for veterans today. It shows them the people who came before them, allows them to honor those veterans who came before them too. So I think it's a really important monument. So we're really excited about the new life of our F-86D, where it will be on display, soaring over the new Veterans Memorial at Veterans Oasis Park, where it will pay tribute to all of Chandler's veterans.